Good to go.
Good morning and welcome to this virtual meeting of the Licensing Subcommittee of the London Borough of Hillingdon. This meeting is in part one, therefore it will be held in public. My name is Alan Chapman and it's my privilege to be chairing this meeting. Before we start, some important online housekeeping for everyone present. Firstly, please ensure any mobile phones around you are silent. Secondly, please keep microphones muted when not speaking and then unmute to speak, of course. Finally, only one person should speak at a time, and I, as chairman, will call those to speak and keep an eye on the room through my gallery view on those indicating to speak. Before we move on to the formal agenda, I'd like to do a roll call of the councillors present to confirm attendance. Please indicate you are present when I say your name. Councillor John Hensley.
Present.
Thank you, John. Councillor Lynn Allen.
Present.
Thank you. Also, please can the other officers present please indicate they are in the meeting. Firstly, the licensing officer, Mark McDermott.
I am sitting in for Mark McDermott. My name is Chini Mukherjee. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Sheena. Legal advisor, Chantal MacLeod.
Good morning, Chairman. Present.
Thank you. Democratic Services Officer, Anisha Tedji.
Good morning, Chairman.
Thank you. The applicant, Mr. Sheikh.
Mr. Sheikh, you may need to unmute yourself.
Good morning. Sorry, it was on the mute. Good morning again.
Good morning, Mr. Sheikh. Good to see you. Thank you. Councillor Brightman.
Good morning, Chairman. Present.
Good morning, Councillor Brightman. In terms of technical meeting control, if any councillor leaves the virtual meeting partway through a period of time, i.e. through a lost connection or whatever, I will continue the meeting unless we are not quorate, which is 2 out of the 3 councillors. Importantly, if a councillor drops out and has not fully heard the statements made by the applicant or other parties for a period of time, they will not be able to determine the matter and may continue to attend the meeting. To help avoid this, if a councillor drops out, I may ask the relevant party to repeat their statement. If any other present drop out during the meeting and have not heard all the statements made, Democratic Services will advise on the best course of action. That concludes the introductory preamble. I'm now in a position to go to the agenda itself. Firstly, item number 1, apologies for absence.
No apologies, Chairman.
Thank you, that's good to know. We've got a full house. Declaration of interest in matters before this meeting? No, there's deafening silence, so I'll take that as a no. Thirdly, to confirm that all items of business are in part 1, should I say, and will therefore be considered in public. Fourthly, matters notified in advance as urgent. Do we have any?
None.
Excellent, thank you. I am now therefore in a position to actually consider the actual item on the agenda, the actual application. The application for a grant of a premises licence for Herbies pizzas. Good morning, Mr. Sheikh. You'll already have the agenda, and if you'd like to follow on page 9, you can follow through the course of events. Firstly, I'd like to introduce the licensing officer and invite her to make an introductory statement.
Thank you, Chairman, and good morning, everyone. Like I said, I'm sitting in for my colleague, Mark McDermott, as he isn't well. So you will have all received the report bundle and will be familiar with the application. This is an adjourned hearing. So it's to consider a contested application for a new premises license in respect of Herbies Pizza, Lash Pizza trading as Herbies Pizza, and the address is 298 Kingshill Avenue, Hayes, UB4 8BX. So this application was submitted by Mr. Shoaib Tariq Raza on behalf of Lash Pizza Limited. Mr. Raja is the director of the company, and Mr. Azizullah Sheikh is also a director who I guess is attending the meeting today. Yes, the proposal is to authorize late night refreshment to enable the provision of hot food and drink between the hours of 2300 and 0200 Sundays to Thursdays and 2300 and 0300 on Fridays and Saturdays. That's what the application states. We have received one representation from Councillor Brightman on behalf of local residents regarding the potential increase in public nuisance. The representation was sent to the applicant and it included a request to reduce the terminal hour until 2300 between Sunday to Thursday and 2330 on Fridays and Saturdays. The applicant stated he could not agree to this. So I recommend the grant of the license with a reduction in the terminal hours as detailed in the report, but this is a decision for the committee and I invite the committee to determine the application, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Do any of my colleagues on the subcommittee have any questions at this stage? I can't actually see Councillor Hensley on my screen, but I assume that's a no. Thank you.
That's a no.
Yes, sorry, Councillor Hensley, I can't see you, so I'm not in a position to confirm visually, so to speak. I'd now like to invite the applicant, Mr. Sheikh, to make a presentation and speak in support of his application.
Yeah, sure. I mean, we have the permission till 11 o'clock anyway to open from 11 o'clock, and half an hour it really doesn't make any sense where there is a lot of shops who are operating till 3 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the night, and we don't serve any alcohol or any music in the shop. We are a small pizza takeaway which works very quietly. We have a good exhaust system. It doesn't really make much of the noise. Neither we have anything which can, I feel, create a nuisance or disturb any neighborhood. We had been doing this for our other branches as well, and we never received any sort of complaint. But I understand that residents, they never seen any late night business on that parade because nobody has applied before. And so I suggest maybe looking into some extra hours and, maybe Friday, Saturday till 3 o'clock. So if we come any sort of arrangement or any middle ground, so we can, just proceed with that. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you, Mr. Sheikh. Do either of my colleagues have any questions? I have a few questions I want to ask, but I'd like to put it open to my colleagues at this stage. Councillor Allen, do you have anything to ask?
Just one question. Mr. Sheikh, have you ever had to call the police to your premises for unruly behaviour, or have you ever had to have the antisocial behaviour team call at your premises to discuss issues with you?
No, not at all. I mean, we have been operating, it's nearly been 1 year, 1 year, 1 month, and we never had any issue because we generally, just people, they come, they take the pizza, or some people, they want to sit, they sit, and that's it. So the answer is no, we never had any issues like that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Do you have any other questions, Councillor Allen? Thank you. Councillor Hensley, you're indicating.
Yes. Whilst the police may not have been called, because the police would only come if there is a disturbance, police will not come, and police are be corrected legally if there's just noise, because that is a council matter. Can you please advise me, when people come 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning, will they be coming on foot or will they be coming by a motorised vehicle? Will they then, how will you control any noise and disturbance by people coming at 1, 2 o'clock in the morning to pick up food from your premises without causing any noise or disturbance to the residents? Thank you.
So it's very obvious. I don't have a control on the people who are driving or the way, the mode they select their transportation. But yeah, they come by walk. There is a lot free parking on the parade, and they come, they park, and so there is no way I can see there is creating any disturbance, because there is a road anyway in front of the parade which has access of 24 hours. There is a car going in and out, and yeah, they come on the walk.
Thank you. I think you're on mute, Councillor Hensley.
No, I'll come back. Yes, you're quite right. Yes, there are people do park outside the road, but there's such things as people shutting car doors. They're not always careful in closing doors quietly. That is what I call a disturbance. And the quiet hours legally is between 11 p.m. and 7 p.m. in the morning. You have just indicated you've got no control whatsoever on any patrons coming to your property who cause that noise and disturbance. Am I right in assuming that, please?
Not inside the property. I said I have no control of the people who are coming
Outside.
Thank
you.
Through inside, I will indicate a polite notice, which we have on the other places as well. Do not disturb a neighbor. Please have that, respect for the neighbors and this sort of thing, just to make sure, and it doesn't disturb or wake anybody in the middle of the night.
Thank you, Mr. Aziz. Do you want to come back on that, John? Or
I think this is really this goes to the crux of the matter. If you have any retail outlet that's operating gone the silent hours, the shopkeeper has no control of what happens outside. If a group of people meet outside and they want to eat that food and they're talking loudly, the owner has no control on that whatsoever, but the residents, as we've just, we can see, will be disturbed.
Yes.
And if you've got to go to work early in the morning and you've had disturbed nights, then it's not fair, not right on those particular people.
Yeah,
thank you.
I understand you. I understand exactly where you're coming from. I think that's probably something that we'll be discussing in the general discussion later on, but thank you. Councillor Allen, you've indicated again. Thank you.
Just to come back, because I'm trying to be fair and balanced here, I asked the question of the operator, Mr. Sheikh, have you ever had the antisocial behaviour team call at your premises regarding antisocial behaviour coming from your premises? Because that's what we're here to discuss.
No, we haven't received any phone call or anything or any issues regarding that. I would like to answer to John Hensley as well, if I'm allowed.
Yes, please do. Yeah.
So the people generally, they tend to come in very less number after 11 o'clock, and whoever is coming, if they feel like eating, they sit inside, and the doors are closed mainly, and there is a noise proof glasses. So whoever is inside, it's a very rare chance that noise can go outside or disturb anyone, or maybe wake them in the middle of the night or something, uh, which I don't agree with that, with Sir John Henley.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sheikh. Thank you, Councillor Allen. I've got a few questions I'd like to ask. Firstly, Mr. Sheikh, you mentioned in your introduction that you're allowed to open till 11 o'clock, but you've indicated that I think you said that you were allowed to stay open an extra half hour. Could you clarify that point?
So the extra hour, which is I'm getting from council as to to allow on the licensing. This is where they propose that you can open till 11:30, and they're given a reason for Deliveroo operating till 11:30 or Uber, but 11:30 is just a half an hour extra. It doesn't really make a big difference. Where Deliveroo and Uber, they operate 24 hours, to be honest. You need a food anywhere, you get that food immediately.
Yeah. What I'm trying to clarify, sorry, can I just clarify though? I appreciate your applying for extended hours. I'm trying to confirm. Are you saying that your current hours as business extend beyond 11 o'clock?
No, not at the moment.
No. So what are your current hours of business?
So
just when do you finish, should I say? I'm not interested in when you start, but when do you finish?
So we finish roughly about 10:30 or 11:15 every day.
But you're never open for business after 11 o'clock?
No.
Okay, thank you. Can I ask how long you've been associated with this specific building, this specific site?
Since September last year.
Yeah, so although the site itself has been open for business, I think about 10 years, you yourself have only been associated for, let's say, a year or so.
Yes.
Yeah. Does that relate to the confusion about Lash and Herbies? Did it used to be Lash and now it's Herbies, or did Lash buy it, or did Herbies buy Lash?
So Lash is a trading name. Sorry, the legal name, and the trading name is Herbies Pizza. It's a franchise business.
Yeah. And did it only start trading as Herbies in the time that you've been involved?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, many thanks. I understand that now. One other question. You've rightly pointed out that other establishments stay open till 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning, and obviously in some circumstances establishments might stay open till or 20. I can imagine at the airport there are facilities that are open 24/7, for example. I don't know, but I can imagine. How would you take into account, though, the fact that at this premises it is in a residential area? There are properties immediately opposite the building, and residential properties, should I say, and also, of course, there's residential flats above the shops as well. How would you take that into account? Do you still think it would be reasonable to stay open till 3 or 24/7, given the people living nearby?
I mean, Friday, Saturday, yes, I will say that. We had a good relationship with our neighbor as well, and we never had any issue. Regarding other days, it's I mean, the councillor must have already consulted them. We didn't get much of the objection. We put the notice and we did all the paperwork as per the requirement. So, and we don't see a business who makes a lot of noise, or we are like a pub or music place or any bar or restaurant which has this noise, or maybe a lot of people coming. So as I said, maybe after 10 or 10:30, the parade is already very quiet. So mostly we focus on delivery rather than collection. So there are very few numbers. The numbers can be less than 5 or maybe less than 3 in the night. So we are not really attracting a carry-out customer in the night, or people to come and sit, eat in the restaurant. What we are looking is to operate quietly, to do a delivery business, so that we can survive in this whole situation and move further.
Thank you, Mr. Sheikh. That's been a great help. Do either of my colleagues have any final questions before we move on?
I do, Mr. Chairman.
You do, John?
Yes.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Thank you very much. You've clarified to some extent that you are looking to have the delivery of food past midnight. Would that include the use of mopeds which is a quick way of moving around the surrounding areas? Or will it all be by cars?
It will be by car,
All by cars, no mopeds at all?
no moped at all.
How can you guarantee that by saying that, please?
Because we don't recruit. It's a winter, and in winter time it's not feasible for moped driver to drive. But we have been operating with car drivers every time.
Thank you, Mr. Sheikh. That was very helpful. Thank you all round, actually. That was very helpful and very informative. Thank you. I'll now move on to the next stage, which is of responsible authorities. We don't actually have any in attendance, so we'll move on to the next stage, which is other interested parties. We do, of course, have one interested party, Councillor Brightman. So, Councillor Brightman, would you like to make your contribution?
Thank you, Chairman. When I've spoken to the residents about this application, their primary concern is that they don't require a service serving pizza till 3 in the morning, and therefore they don't want it in a quiet residential area. It would be different if it was on the Uxbridge Road, where there's, you know, an anticipation of more noise, but there's nothing else on that parade that opens that late. And inevitably there's going, you know, any activity is going to be an increase in noise. And because of the way the flats are laid out in behind Kingshill, after dark noise travels more, and so it would result in disruption to sleep. So that's really what the residents have to say about it. They'd prefer it to close a little you know, earlier than the applicant's proposed.
Thank you, Councillor Brightman. Do either of my colleagues have any questions for Councillor Brightman?
Just
Councillor
one.
Allen?
Yeah.
I think you're on mute, possibly, Councillor Allen.
Right. You have a public house close by there that is open a lot later than 11 o'clock. Have you ever had any complaints about the noise there?
Yes, over the years, yes, but not recently. But it's the Brook House generally is closes around 11.
They have got a license for longer though.
They open. I think they tend to open late on New Year's Eve. But other than that, they generally close because there isn't the demand.
Oh, thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Allen. Councillor Hensley, do you have any questions?
I think I've made my position at this particular moment, but I may come back later. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hensley. I have no further questions. I have no questions myself, so many thanks, Councillor Brightman. Thank you. We've concluded the evidence taking, so to speak. We're now moving to the discussions stage of the subcommittee hearing. Oh, Councillor Allen?
Before we move forward, you say you've had no representation from responsible authorities, and usually, you know, if we've had complaints or of any type on that parade, an officer would come and present that. So clearly there's been no complaints. Am I correct in that?
I'm not in a position to 100% confirm that, but clearly it would suggest there haven't been a repetition of complaints or a serial complaint, shall we say. As Councillor Brightman said, you know, it may be the case that there have been complaints, but they're relatively few and far between and isolated, so there's no fundamental issue with the times currently had. No,
but some time back, because we were getting residents saying, you know, we're suffering this, we're suffering that, and yet we weren't in a position to know, we insisted that if there was any problems at all, officers should come along and present that case, so that it was balanced. The residents weren't feeling they weren't being listened to, and officers were doing what they were supposed to be doing. So clearly there's no representation, there is no problem. Thank you.
Ginny, you've indicated.
Yes, Councillor Chairman Chapman. The licensing authority did put in a representation, which was later withdrawn after the applicant agreed with the proposed conditions, because the operating schedule provided by the applicant was not extensive enough to uphold the objectives. But additional conditions were agreed, and they are appended in Appendix 5. And the licensing authority felt that those are appropriate and sufficient for the promotion of the objectives. Thank you.
Thank you, Ginny. Thank you for clarifying that point.
Yes.
I'll now move on to the discussion phase of the meeting, which it says in my notes is led by myself, so no pressure there then. Mr. Sheikh, you've heard the representations from Councillor Brightman. You've initially requested 2 AM and 3 AM. She's suggested that less generous extra time, shall we say, to 11:30, 12 o'clock would be acceptable. Would that be of interest to you? Would that be viable to you?
Yeah, we can look into that. I mean, obviously it's sort of negotiation. I prefer maybe I put a request for at least 1 o'clock. Let's say not 2 o'clock for the middle of the day, or just 1 o'clock on the normal days, and weekend have 2 or 2:30. This is my proposal.
Yeah, well, at the moment, the proposal is what the application says, which is 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock. Obviously, Councillor Brightman has offered her own observations. Just to be clear, the subcommittee itself will come to its own conclusions, which may be one, maybe the other, or maybe a totally separate third, our own compromise, so to speak. Councillor Brightman, you've heard the suggestion that maybe 1 o'clock might be acceptable.
I would think maybe 1 o'clock on a Friday and Saturday would be acceptable. You know, residents haven't said specifically what dates, what times they'd prefer, but they just thought 3 o'clock was too late.
Thank you. Do either of my subcommittee colleagues have anything to say at this point? Councillor Allen, did you indicate?
I think our decision should be based on information in front of us, not what could be, because what could happen or what may happen is an issue that, you know, if residents have concerns after we've made our decision, and it should be our decision, then they have a right to representation, and they can get a petition and come before us, and, you know, we could look at it again. But I don't think at this point we should be stymieing a business that, you know, we know business is struggling out there, and I think we should be doing all we can on the evidence we have in front of us, not could be, should be. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Allen. Councillor Hensley?
No, at this point, Chairman, I think I've made my point clear. Thank you.
Many thanks, Councillor Hensley. Unless anybody's got any other specific points for general discussion, whether they'd like to indicate that. I see a lot of shaking heads at this point. Unless anybody's got any specific points, I'd like to invite the various parties to make closing remarks now. There is a set format for the order, so I'd like to go to other parties, so to speak, in reverse order. Councillor Brightman, would you like to just make some closing remarks? You don't have to.
I think the point's been made, Chairman.
Many thanks, thank you. Licensing Officer Ginny, do you have any closing remarks?
I have nothing additional to add at this point. Thank you, Chairman.
Many thanks. And Mr. Sheikh, would you like to wrap up with any closing remarks at this point?
Yeah, sure. I mean, we have a shop on the next parade, which is very nearby, and it is a pharmacy shop. It's called AM to PM, which do operate in the late night, and there are, that's the only shop I had seen. And as we don't have any complaint or anything received so far regarding the late night opening, so I don't find a valid reason why we shouldn't be giving chance to survive our business rather than just shutting down on that parade. Because I put a lot of effort for the Herbies to bring on that parade. It took me kind of year to convince them to bring that business on that place, and shutting down that shop for me, or it will be a disaster. So I will try my best to convince all of you uh, to, let's have a look again. We are really struggling as a business. We just need a few more extra hours in the night so we can survive and go further. That's what I'm going to say, Councillor. And I would like to close the remark. Thank you.
Many thanks. That's been very helpful. Thank you. Right, we've come to the conclusion of the discussion-led, the closing remarks element of the meeting. I will now adjourn the subcommittee and move to a private deliberation on the application prior to announcing its decision. This could take a while, so you don't have to rejoin the virtual meeting. A decision notice will be issued to the applicant in writing within 5 working days of the meeting, or alternatively, you can contact the council's licensing officer later today to hear the outcome verbally. Thank you to everyone who took the time to attend this virtual meeting today. Could I now ask the councillors, legal officer and democratic services officer to remain online, and politely request that all other parties please now leave the virtual meeting room. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time, and have a good day.
Thank you, Mr. Sheikh.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chairman.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.